Welcome to the Paul Has Fun podcast. I'm Paul, and on this podcast, I dig into my hobbies. I also document my life and interests. Thank you so much for spending time with me. This is my Super Mario Brothers spoiler review $1 billion later, because the movie has made over $1 billion at the box office. I did see the movie. The movie was released April 5th, and I saw it April 6th. It cost about $100 million to make, and I'm assuming with the advertising budget, I've heard a lot of other movie pundits say that you have to multiply whatever the budget is, and that gives you the marketing costs. So let's say it cost $200 million. $100 million to make the movie, another $100 to promote the movie. And to date, I'm recording this on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. The worldwide box office is $1,045,000,000, let's say. What is it that I enjoyed about this movie? Because I did enjoy this movie. This was a good time in the theater for sure. And when I went, I saw it in Newport, North Jersey, at the AMC. The theater was crowded. Parents, kids. This was in the afternoon as well. I feel like growing up with Mario, because that's always, like, I've been into video games since I was a kid. When I was a kid, it was more Atari, and then Mario came later. But this character's been a constant in video games since, like I said, I was a kid. I played some of the Mario games. I really enjoyed Super Mario Brothers 2 back in the day, all the way in the regular Nintendo. And I've dabbled with the other games, but I felt as I've grown older, I just moved away from Nintendo games and preferred more stuff like on the Xbox and stuff on the PlayStation and things like this. But honestly, seeing this movie, I was encouraged to buy a Nintendo Switch console, to enjoy these Mario games. But I've heard stories, and I keep up with video game news. I enjoy keeping up with video game news, that Nintendo just very much nickels and dimes their customers, where even to this day, games that came out initially when the Nintendo Switch came out, of their Mario games, they still are selling them at full price, and they have not moved in that price. Back in the day, you can find a game that came with a Super Nintendo, or a game that came with the Nintendo, and over time, it would be discounted if you could find it super cheap, the cartridge. But now, not anymore. These games still, to this date, 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old, 6-year-old games selling at $60. Mario games, Zelda games, maybe some of the other games like a Kirby or something like that. That maybe has come down in price a little bit, but a Super Smash Brothers or a Super Mario Brothers, a Super Mario Kart, any of these kinds of games, still full price. I really feel that Xbox's model of kind of having like a Netflix version, and putting all of these, like even their first party games, the Microsoft games, putting all these games just in like a monthly subscription, and you have access to it, is the way to go. It's the most value, I guess, that a customer can have in terms of wanting to play video games and having all these games at their hands. I even very much like PlayStation Premium, where they don't put their new titles day and date on that streaming subscription service, but they eventually do come to the service. And Nintendo does have a subscription service as well, but it just has a lot of old stuff, like stuff from like the Game Boy or the Nintendo, some Nintendo 64, like old stuff. Nothing of the new things, right? This is a way that I feel that they nickel and dime, folks. They are the number one console of the three. Of PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo is the number one in terms of console sold, games sold. And I guess when you're number one, you can kind of make the rules. But I really do feel that Xbox's method of their streaming service, their download service, that monthly subscription, Game Pass, is the way to go in terms of value for customers. So I did buy a Switch inspired by watching this movie, because I enjoyed this movie so much. Brought so much nostalgia back from when I was a kid, and just seeing this on the big screen. I saw the original Super Mario Brothers movie with John Leguizamo and Bob Hoskins, may he rest in peace, so many years back in theaters, and just remember it not being very good, but it was entertaining. I'm very easy to entertain. What I meant to say initially is that this movie is a movie where it's, I think, made for my age group, which is a Gen X, in the sense of like all the nostalgia that's in the movie with the characters, and even the way some scenes are shot where it seems like you're playing a video game. Like you see Mario just jumping on platforms and interacting with the world the same way he would in a video game, but with all the new fans that these games have made, which surprises and astounds me that it's still making new fans. It's a movie that even little kids, adults, in my age group, even people that don't know about Mario Brothers and what this whole thing is about, can enjoy. And I think that speaks to the box office of it being a $1 billion movie, the first $1 billion movie of 2023. Other things that I liked about the movie: Jack Black, where there's been buzz about his song about Peach, Princess Peach, might be Oscar worthy in terms of a best musical category, and he was fantastic. He was the only voice that I didn't even know he was in the movie, sincerely. I didn't see the cast before, but he was the one voice that I just instantly knew, oh, that's Jack Black, when he started to sing, because I'm a big fan of Tenacious D, his group, right? His duo group with the other guy, Kyle Gass. When he started to sing is when I knew, oh, that's Jack Black. But when he was like just talking regular and stuff like that, I didn't know that. I just knew that Chris Pratt was the voice of Mario, and that Keegan-Michael Key is in this. I'm telling you, I didn't even recognize his voice. I think he was Toad. But Jack Black and his singing was really fantastic. Is the reason why you start to see so many memes of it on TikTok. And let me tell you, when I see, doesn't mean that it's going to be a successful movie, but when I see folks sharing things on TikTok in terms of little memes or clips from movies or TV shows, it's, for me, meaning that it's really catching the zeitgeist, the cultural zeitgeist. The music as well, the soundtrack, it has beats from the original Mario game, the original Nintendo game. It's inside, like it's mixed and weaved with the original score, and I thought that was very cool too. Then you see Donkey Kong, you see references to Mario Kart, Kid Icarus, you see Jumpman. Like there's one scene where he's in an arcade. I think this is when he comes back to the real world, in terms of the world that he comes into before he goes into the Super Mario world, right? Through the pipes like you see in the games. And you see he's in an arcade. You see these references to games like Kid Icarus, Jumpman. Like I said, his fight with Donkey Kong in the movie is very reminiscent of Super Smash Brothers, which I've never really gotten into. Even Mario Kart I've never gotten into. This is, like I said, I was into Mario before, but never really got into it much. I just felt like these were games for kids. Even though video game critics, they always laud these games. They always give it a lot of praise because of the game mechanics and how natural it feels, you know, how easy it is. Like I said, seeing this movie, I ended up buying a Switch. I have not brought a Mario game in because I'm not going to pay $60 for a Mario game. But if they go on sale, I will consider buying one. This movie was just oozing nostalgia, and nostalgia playing to me in terms of a Gen Xer who grew up with Mario. For me, I can't speak to how it impacts kids or how it impacts people that don't know about Mario Brothers, but I can tell you that this is the way that it impacted me, and I thought it was very well done. And I thought that this style of animation, CG style, computer graphic style animation that you see like in Minions, and you see in a lot of Pixar movies nowadays, it fits perfectly with this like kind of Super Mario Brothers world. Also, what I've liked is that this movie was a little bit over 90 minutes and it's done. You know, like so many movies these days are 2-3 hours. We all have other stuff to do, you know. I mean, if something is good and it's 2-3 hours, that's great. I prefer to see 2-3 hours at home, but like I said, big event movies I'll go see, you know, in theaters. Like a movie which I'm going to review in the nearby future, which I saw last night, which was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I'm sorry. You know, and that was like close to 3-hour movie as well. But we'll get to that review in a little bit. But overall, this movie was fantastic. I also, in terms of talking about the box office, I found this article on the New Yorker. I'll leave a link for this article in the show notes, this New Yorker article, if you wanted to go ahead and check it out. And my last movie review is Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Amongst Thieves. And you would think this is another property that has been around for a long time that one would think that would have a lot of nostalgia. But this New Yorker article, it's written by Kyle Chayka, and it was published on May 4th, 2023. And he said this in terms of comparing these two properties and why kind of one made more money than the other. This is a quote from the article here. I'm going to read a little paragraph here. Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, an adaptation of the tabletop role-playing game, debuted in March to a much more muted audience response. The film earned less than $200 million in worldwide box office sales, making it a hit but not a huge one. As a brand name, D&D is not nearly as mainstream as Mario, but in other ways D&D lends itself much more easily to successful adaptation. It's a board game entirely built around the narrative players create. D&D lends itself much more easily to successful adaptation. It's a board game entirely built around narrative. Players create elaborate characters and make choices about how they behave. Each playthrough is distinct and unpredictable. With Mario, you always know exactly what you're getting, but the lack of suspense isn't necessarily a hindrance. This one gentleman is quoted here. His name is Alexander. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's revealed in this article. He says that the video game adaptations, like all filmic universal building, needs two core ingredients to thrive: love and adoration, both for the individual characters and for the world in which they exist. Nintendo knew it had with Mario and calculated correctly that it needed little else. So that is my review. This was a good time. I think many people have enjoyed this, as obviously, like I said, it's made $1 billion in the box office. And looking forward to more sequels. I would think that the natural direction would be to go with a Donkey Kong movie, because the character was featured in this. But selfishly, I think I'd like a Metroid movie. It probably wouldn't be as big as this Mario movie, but I've always been a big fan of Metroid. This very cool sci-fi character there in space and things like that. But then you think about the movie that came out, Lightyear, and how that bombed so badly. So I don't know how successful a Metroid movie would be, but that's kind of, if I had my wish list, that's what I would like to see next. Definitely want to hear what you think. Please comment below wherever you may be listening to this, or you could always do it on the blog at paulhasfun.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.